Our goal at Stand Up for Passion is to empower about 1,000 speakers worldwide. So we've done New York, but we've done Tokyo, we've done Nepal, we've done London. I think it's a movement, and there is lots of storytelling events doing those sorts of things around the world. The only difference is we coach people for a few weeks. And the goal is they come up with this one story of just 7 minutes. And why 7 minutes? Yes, it's a magical number, it's mystical. But what I found is that it's just what you need. So it's not boring, because I like to be entertained. I want to just get the juice enough so we get inspired to do something. I'll give you an example, because what I would like you to do is, while you hear the story, keep thinking of your own story, right? When those people break down, what is it that makes who they are? If we look at the outside of people, it's never what's the inside, right? If you read about me, I'm a French guy from Paris, lived in China, Japan, filmmaking, technology, I was in finance, in politics, all sorts of great things. Yet if you take the peel off, it's a bit of a different guy. Yeah, I was from Paris, but actually I was from a small village outside of Paris. We moved to Paris, I was 5 years old. And it doesn't seem much, but when I was 9 years old, one time I was with true Paris friends, which means they were born in Paris. And one day they were making fun of me just because of the way I was referring to my parents, my grandparents, because I was using redneck terms. So that day I'm like, okay, I'm not completely a Parisian. Yes, if someone meet me in New York, in Tokyo, or Zimbabwe, they're from Paris, I'm a Paris guy. Okay, so it's not really this. Second thing I'll tell about me, let's say I'm 16 years old. I'm bored of Paris, and I'm moving to Georgia in America, of all places. And then I discover that American people, with all their weaknesses and strengths, at least can choose to become what they want to be, which was a totally foreign concept to me in France, where we have to be put in boxes, starting to change, but still pretty much so. And then I'll give you a third example. I'm 19 years old now, I'm in Japan, and for the first time in my life, I'm discovering love. I really, even though I'm from the country of love, France, and I'm very proud to be French, I had not experienced, and when I mean not experienced, I'm not just talking about the physical aspect. I had not experienced, just because my family background, I had not felt love inside of me because of my crazy family. So, okay, he's French, maybe no loves. Well, no, not all the French guys love, unless for me, I had to go to somewhere as foreign as Japan. And then I'll take a last example, which I think you start to get where I'm going. I'm now 24, done finance, done great job already around the world, and my goal is just to be a rich guy. I'm about to fly to Hong Kong 2 weeks later, and then my parents announced me that they're going to divorce. And I'm already an old man. I'm 24. So you say, what would be the consequence, right? I'm not 10 years old, 5 years old. Yet it was very difficult on me, much more than my younger sister, because I always was gone somewhere in the world. I was very, very ambitious. But that day, when they announced me they were going to divorce, that changed the course of my life. I decided that day, career, money-making was not going to be my route, my path. And then I became an artist, an adventurer, so forth, so on. And here I am today. And I give one more key things, I guess. 3 years ago, I'm in the tribes, and all of a sudden, things make sense. This is finally how I can make an impact in the world using what I've seen in the tribe, the way people talk to each other. So that's it. And the reason I just give you my example, it's something new I'm doing in workshop, a little bit more deeper about my life. It's just because it helps people to see what we're about to see, right? So those people, when we coach them, I say, just don't give me just your word. Don't give me just where you're from. Give me something else. I want in 7 minutes, people get inspired and get to see something new that they've never seen. I want them to feel something new that they've never seen. I want you to talk straight to the soul. That's what I tell my guys. This being said, and it's not that heavy. I feel like, oh la la, well, this is so heavy. We still need to bring the joy. My goal is to mix purpose and joy. I used to be a stand-up comedian, and you'll see we'll make jokes during the evening, because I do believe lightness is important, comedy is important, but also the depth, the purpose, the intention. And if we can mix the two, we're good. And this is what I hope you're going to see tonight. I would love to go around first, and if you could please, each of you, describe yourself a little bit and your personal journey with ambition. Let's start with you, Sarika.
First of all, I just want to say, Arnaud, thank you so much for having us here, and the speakers were incredible. I feel so inspired. But my journey in terms of ambition has kind of been similar, where I've been kind of seeking just different opportunities to understand myself. You know, I did business school, I've worked at the World Bank, I've done technology, and I think the one theme that kind of was a part of my journey is finding love. And I was always a romantic. Like, ever since I was a kid, I was always interested in reading tons of books on romance and all the Q&A sections of women's magazines. And in my 20s, I went from relationship to relationship. And being of Indian descent, getting married was very important in our culture. So around 28, I was like, I want to find my husband. So I was working in management consulting at that time, and I came up with a business plan for how to find a husband. And I followed it, and I started coaching other women in that space. Yeah. And I met an amazing man, and we got engaged in a year. And then a month after we got engaged, he broke up with me. And I begged him, why? Like, I don't understand. And he said, you're too controlling. I don't trust you. You're not the same woman I fell in love with in the beginning. And you keep your loved ones at a distance. And more. He told me more. And I was completely shocked. So anyways, that night I went home completely devastated, crying. Everything at work was falling apart. I had managers angry at me. I mean, it was just, everything just seemed to be falling apart, really. And that night, a voice came from my heart that said, I need spiritual healing. And I didn't know what that meant, being in the corporate world. So the very next day, I came upon a psychic, and she read my energy. And how many people have seen a psychic? Okay, good. Don't go and see a psychic just because I just shared this. But anyway, she read my energy field, and she said, you know, you're your worst critic. You have so much toxic thinking. Your heart and your sexual chakras are blocked, and you're just disconnected from yourself, you know? So you're gonna keep settling in life, in your career, in your love life. If you keep going down this path, you're a magnet for heartbreak. So you have an opportunity right now to heal, to reconnect with yourself. So that's what I did. I jumped into a few months, or maybe it turned into years, of healing my relationship with myself, connecting with myself, really consciously creating what I wanted in my life. And 3 months later, I met my husband, actually, who's here, in a meditation group. So, you know, long story short, you know, a few years later, I've been working on falling in love with myself, with my life, consciously creating what I want, including becoming a mother, and supporting other people in that journey as well as a love and relationship coach. So that's kind of my journey with ambition in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Arnaud. Beautiful speaker before. Good evening, everyone. My journey with ambition. So I'm a French guy, as you can hear, maybe. I trained as a veterinarian, so doctor for big animals. That was my background. And I came to this country 11 years ago as a CEO of a big French luxury company. So it's like what happened in between. There's a lot that happened. So basically, I done a lot of different things in my life. I kind of relate a lot with what you were sharing, Arnaud. Like, I became an entrepreneur, and then I joined a big company, and I was always, I would say, very successful in many ways. And I think that was my ambition, you know, to kind of get the bigger job or build a bigger company. And when I arrived in the US here, so I was running this big company over the US and Canada, and I was really not happy at all. There was something like I was missing, but my ambition was really strong to get something bigger. So I was looking for something more. So I ended up leaving that company and starting my own business, in fact, a few blocks away from here. In a funny coincidence, we look at that space before eBay moved in to move our company here. So it's kind of funny to be here tonight. And so we raised over $50 million for that business over 4 years. We built the business from 2 people, me and my business partner, to 200 employees. And I thought that was it. You know, my ambition was thriving, and I said, I did it. The problem is that I was still not very happy. There was something missing. So my ambition was like, there was something missing there. And so I was very interested in meditation and healing. And so I went to one of my teachers, and I said, you know what, I think I need to quit everything. I need to go to India. I need to go in an ashram. And I just need to meditate for a year, and probably I'm going to find out what's going on here. And he looked at me. He was a very serious man. And he was like, why would you go in an ashram? And he's like this very famous Buddhist teacher here. And I was like, okay, that's weird. He said, no, he said, you need to crack your heart big open. So I want you to go to India, but you're going to serve. You're going to help people. So I went to India, and I went to work at Mother Teresa. And I spent, over a year in India and Nepal and doing service work. And as I was there, something cracked open a little bit as you were describing it. And I realized that my ambition had nothing to do with, in fact, the success I was looking for, but had to do with self-love. I was trying to get the attention of someone, and that someone was my parents. I was separated from my mother when I was just born. I was born by C-section and removed from her, so I didn't even get the first contact with her for 10 days. And that trauma was deeply ingrained in my brain, but completely unconscious. I didn't even remember it. And I realized that all what I was trying to do, building big businesses, becoming the CEO of big companies, becoming a veterinarian, was to get that approval. And my parents say, you're amazing, this is great, we love you. I thought I could get that. But obviously what I was looking for is that first contact with my mother 40 years ago. And I would never got that. And so through a long journey of a couple of years and a lot of deep work, I ended up working with medicine people in Peru and in Brazil in the forest. And one day, through one of these experiences with plant medicine, I relieved my full birth for 2 hours, minute by minute, seeing from the inside of the womb of my mother, the opening from the surgeon, the hands of the surgeon taking me out, his face, the room, just everything. And I look at my mother for the first time. And I felt so much love. And then the magic of the experience of that altered state of consciousness, the plants took me back inside, put me back this time inside my mother, and make me see the birth again from my mother's perspective. And I saw that immense love that she felt when I came out. And that was it. That was the big shift I was looking for. And so my ambition changed completely from that place where like, okay, this is not what I need to strive for. Now I need to find myself. And 4 or 5 years later, now we're here, and I know we're going to talk more about it today, but I'm doing now shamanic work with people. So I help them enter the altered state of consciousness through a drum or through plant medicine and other techniques, working with spirit. And so they can reconnect to their source and see where truly they are without the story, without what they've learned, without what their parents told them, without society's telling them. And to me, that's the true ambition, is finding that calling, listening to it, and driving your life from there. So that's really how I would define it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Donalyn Civello. I'm an intuitive life coach, and I'm an inspirational blogger and an author and yoga teacher. I wear many hats, actually. The type of work I do with clients I feel is really deep, and it's really meaningful and really purposeful. I feel like I have the ability to work with clients in such a way where Basically, I help them live healthier, happier lives. But more importantly, I help them to understand their lives, because I help them to understand their life lessons. I help them to understand why things happen the way they do in their life, why things show up the way they do. I help explain to them certain lessons that are recurring themes in their life, and I help them to understand this is what you do. You get the lesson and you get out. You don't want to repeat the lesson. This isn't something you want to be doing. And their thought is, what do you mean, it's not a coincidence? I'm like, no. There's no coincidence. If something's happening again and again, it's because there's a pattern you're not seeing, and you want to work through it. So like I said, I feel like the work is really transformative, and I'm really proud of it. Right? It makes me really happy. So that's what I would say about the work that I do, but it wasn't always like this. I have to say I'm a classic overachiever for sure, and I used to make the mistake where I equated happiness with ambition. I don't know if any of you have ever done that, right? And I was on Arnaud's stage 2 years ago, and I said just this. I used to say, if I could just get that great job, then I'd be happy, and then if I could just get the promotion, then I'd be happy. And if I could just get the raise, then I'd be happy, right? And then if I could just get that new apartment, then I'd be happy. And then, of course, I wanted the new relationship. If I could just get that great relationship, then I'd be happy, and so on and so forth, if we've ever done this before. And I thought I had everything, but all of a sudden in 2009, that all changed. And it all changed really quick, too. I lost everything I had in a 6-week period. 6 weeks. Everything, talk about ambition. Everything that I had built for years, business school, design and architecture, graduate degrees, everything I had built was gone. I woke up one morning and the magazine I worked for closed overnight. And so I lost my full-time job, which is one thing. But then I lost the man I thought I was marrying to another woman 3 months before I was marrying him.
German girl.
And then, thanks for the reminder, Arnaud.
I'm trying to tag to the story before.
Yes, exactly. But then I lost my home because we lived together. And I only had $98 in my bank account. I had the most fabulous clothes and shoes, but unfortunately I didn't have any cash. I always lived paycheck to paycheck. So now, everything I had worked so hard to create was gone. And I literally had to pick myself up and start over again. So it made me think, what happens? What happens when we're working so hard towards a goal and all we want to do is create and we work so hard at this and then it's gone? It's gone, all of it, just like that. What do? Are you never happy again? Is that what happens? And I was determined I was not going to lose my life. I was not going to lose my life, and I wanted to be happy because I deserved to be happy. I was a good person, and I deserved to be happy. But I started to realize that I had to redefine happiness because now there was no longer anything that I could achieve or create outside of me that was ever going to make me happy. I was alone, and I had to learn how to be happy on my own. And that was the hardest thing I ever did. But I did it. I learned to create a space within myself that was true happiness. And then it was mine, right? It was hard-won, and nobody was ever going to take it away from me. So it doesn't matter what happens outside of me now. I know that I have that power to be happy within. And so that's the crux of the work that I've been doing the last 7 years. Because I figured, hey, if I can do it, if I can find happiness for no reason, you can do it too. And I can help you do it. And so that's what I've been doing. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vipin. I am one of 3 partners at a company called Upbuild, where we coach entrepreneurs and leaders in larger companies, and we do workshops that are built around this framework of the Enneagram, which is a personality typology that's focused around underlying motivations, insecurities, aspirations, and all of that. So I feel like we think of ourselves as kind of ego specialists, and that's kind of what we do. My relationship to ambition, I think the most interesting question about ambition is, what is the object of your ambition, or what has been the object of my ambition, at least for me, for most of my life. I wouldn't have necessarily articulated this until the last few years, but it's the object of my ambition has always been prestige, and which means that it's pretty much been defined by and heavily influenced by what other people think versus coming from a source from myself. So I think about that from everything from childhood and getting good grades, and going to a good college, to my first job. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew that working at McKinsey was one of the most prestigious jobs that I could get leaving college, and so I just focused on that. And every time I would achieve those things, I would always look for that light in someone else's eyes when I'm talking to them and I'm telling them what I do or where I go to school, and they're impressed. They shine a little bit, and it makes me feel like my sense of self-worth and value. So in contrast to all of those experiences, actually even in between, I was a startup founder. We built a business for a few years, sold it to a public company. And even if I think about that experience, while it was a big part of that was self-expression, there was clearly an element of today, to be a founder is prestigious, to be a tech founder, to try to create something from nothing. And I've always been influenced by that consciously or mostly subconsciously or unconsciously. And I think now, for the first time, in contrast to all of those experiences, I'm trying to do something that I think is much less prestigious, or it doesn't have the same level, it doesn't carry the same level of prestige, at least among my peers or classmates. And I'm in the throes of it. I think all of these guys have gone through their struggles and come out the other side, and I'm in the middle of it right now. I'm in the middle, and that's part of the journey. That's my interaction with
How do
ambition.
you use the Enneagram to help someone with ambition and happiness, and to understand maybe where are their ambition and happiness? Maybe you can specify for those who don't know exactly what is the Enneagram, just in a nutshell. And then how do you use that?
So I think the Enneagram is a framework. It's a personality framework. There are 9 distinct personality types, and the thing that really differentiates it is that it focuses on, well, there are 2 things I think that differentiate it. One is that it really focuses on motivation. So a lot of the personality typologies that are out there are much more behavioral, like Myers-Briggs, so when it's behavioral, it can indicate to you what your behaviors are. But what the Enneagram does is focus on the underlying motivation that drives the behavior. So when you actually understand the motivation, you can change the behavior. And that's the thing that's really powerful about it. The other thing, I think, is it's super complex. And because of the complexity, I think it actually does an incredible job of reflecting reality, because human beings are incredibly complex. So it's not a simple 2x2 matrix. And so the way that I think it can help is really understanding the motivations, the fears and insecurities that often whip us around, but we're unaware of that. And once we become aware of that, you actually can make your choices much more intentionally.
My name's Anu. So I'm wondering, how is your ambition look different now versus before in practical terms? Because you, like Vipin said, you all are helping other people now versus in your corporate lives before. But you still have to make money. You still have to have, you still have to survive. So how is your ambition now different from how it was before?
So my ambition has changed, just as I was saying. Arnaud was asking, obviously we've given up, each of you has given up a little bit of ambition in your career paths. And I feel like, no, I haven't given up ambition at all. I actually am just as ambitious. The object of my ambition is different, but it's a struggle because my whole, for 40 years, I've defined success a certain way, and I'm trying to redefine it for myself. And the body and the mind is revolting. Like I'll see my peers be successful at something, and I get triggered, and I think, I feel entitled. Like I should be doing that. I should have achieved that kind of success by now. But I'm trying to take a turn, and so, we'll see where the story is still to be written. But I think that it's the object of that ambition. For me right now, it's focused on, for the first time, like outside of myself and my own, achievements.
So I would agree with Vipin. I don't think we've lost any ambition at all. I mean, if anything, I'm just as ambitious. It's just that the nature of the ambition changes. And it is more for me to be of service. And, I think for everybody, we all have a life purpose. You're all here for something, every one of us. And so it's just finding out what that is. And then, you either feel fulfilled or you don't. So you could spend your life chasing jobs, chasing money, and never be happy because you're not really fulfilled, you're not doing what you want to do. So if you channel that energy and ambition into what you really want to do, it's a game changer. And I feel like now I'm just as ambitious, but now my ambition, it's in the right direction. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think the money and how you make money out of it is an interesting question. That question being from a CEO to living in the woods now and not having a salary. I think for me the work every morning when I wake up and in my practice every day is really about how do I become that better version of myself, and what kind of work I can do, kind of clear, the ego and the fear and the shadows that we don't see by definition and all those things. So to tap more deeply into my calling and hear that voice. And I believe that when we get more aligned with that calling, as close as we are as possible, every day a bit more, flow arises from that. And flow is in abundance. If you look at the earth around, nature provides abundance. The tree doesn't worry about is it going to make leaves next spring or anything like that. It just happened. But if the tree tries to be an eagle, because I'm too rooted here, I'd like to fly, it's going to have a very hard time with it. So I find a very profound flow in my life that is incredible by every time I just speak more authentically or I just tap more authentically in what I'm supposed to be. That's the first part of it. And I think the second part of it is around service. So when to direct that calling into serving others and making sure, that people around us, can also find that, can also find their own way, can also find their way out of that and find their calling and helping them onto that. And I feel then you're taking care of somehow. The universe is going to help you in so many ways, in sometimes extraordinary ways that you could not even make up with your mind. It doesn't always mean money, but it can mean many other ways of being taken care of.
So I think that's a really profound question. And I remember when I was in the corporate world, I was like, how do people go do cool things? And I'll just say, 2 years later, it's like there's been tons of heartbreak. There's been tons of breakdowns. Not tons, I'll say like a few that I can think of. Vulnerability, asking for help, trust in myself, trust in the universe. You kind of come face to face with all your shadows, and you see very dark places of yourself when you're on this path and you redefine what money means. I remember I had this conversation with one of my mentors around money because that's what he focuses on. And I was like, I don't know how to alter my relationship with money because it's important for us to live, and I'm not making enough, so, what's going on here? And he's like, well, maybe you've got to have a heartbreak around money, And so it's like each aspect of pursuing this ambition is about facing those sides of us that we don't want to see and doing it with courage, doing it with love. doing it with heart openness and not shutting down your heart. It's a heart opening journey, and everyone can do it. Even if you're in the corporate world today, you can start doing small things that you love, and you can even turn your corporate job into one that's loving and nourishing for you and the people around you. So I think the calling begins today.
Thank you. My name is Aziz, and my question is primarily to Jérôme and Guillaume, sorry, and Vimpin. And you both seem to have left behind a very bright life and a very successful. I mean, I'm not saying that your life now is not, but I mean, by other measures, you have left bright futures in front of you. Did you come to a point where you said, am I doing the right thing? And what was the answer, and how did you go beyond this? Thank you.
It's a great question. It's a great question. I don't know about bright lives that we left, but I think you come to a point, at least for me, where when you fall on your knees or so low, there is no other option than just living where you are and changing. So there was no choice. Somehow, I came to a point of no choice. There was a few falls before, but I came to a point where, I guess by definition of society, I was highly successful, but I was probably the most miserable person at that time in my entire life. The issue was a self-reinforcing thing that I got the Entrepreneur of the Year award. I got named, top 20 company in the US on Forbes magazine at the time. It was exactly those few weeks that happened next to each other where I was highly miserable. I was living with addictions to drugs and alcohol. My relationship was falling apart. So I could see the lie, the mask that I was wearing during the interviews and what I was saying about success. And something shattered in me. That was something that really shattered. And that pushed me into changing. So during the 3 years of the journey that took me in different places in the world, there was many moments where I thought about going back. Because, my parents thought I was crazy. My friends, my good friends, people close to me sometimes, it's like, what are you doing? And then you're tested. I say tested by God. You receive like great job offer. Come back. We want you as CEO of this great company in New York, So you're tested. And then in your heart, you know that you should not do that. There's something that's telling you know what? It's hard, but I know there is something brighter. And to me, there is no way I would have gone through that without faith, without divine intervention. I think it's impossible because the only thing that's really guiding you in that darkness for me was that. Because the rest, is really telling you to go back. Your mind is telling you, come back to New York, get security, take your apartment back, get a new job, and all of that. And sometime in the darkest moment, there is really nothing to hold to but faith. So it forced me into more surrender, opening more my heart, trusting more. And if you have to walk with spirit, which what we all are, at the end of the day, I truly believe that, we have to listen to it. We have to trust that he has our back, that somehow, something we're so miserable, it was pushing us out of that. That's why we felt so miserable. It was kind of pushing us out, and pushing us so hard that we were feeling horrible. So I kind of trust that force that was calling me. There was something calling me, but without knowing what the calling was about, without knowing where it was going. And I think someone mentioned that earlier. It's like putting everything in and just going in. I'm not really even knowing where it's going and what will be the outcome, but I know that what was behind was not the solution. So I don't know if it answered your question, but that's really how I felt that. And it's really a calling. It's that voice that we don't know where it's coming from. We don't know what it is. It's just telling me what you're doing now is not what you have to do. But I had no idea that I would be doing what I'm doing today, at any time.
I think that this is actually the experience of a lot of people where Richard Rohr writes about this in Falling Upward, right? There's a crash, and from that is where you reevaluate a lot, all of these things. And that story is consistent actually across all of my co-panelists. For me, it's been slightly different, and maybe that's why I'm still in the throes of it. Or maybe I haven't been able to see what that fall has been. I don't see it clearly because I'm too close to it. But I would say when I describe my path of ambition and realizing, I think progressively over the last 40 years, I've tried to get closer and closer to what do I actually want versus what do I think everybody else wants for me, and realizing, I mean, it's sad on one hand when I think about all the things I've done in my life, because it's not coming from like what I actually wanted, but from how I think I'll be perceived if I do all of these things. And it makes you feel quite helpless at the end of the day, like, wow, I'm so desperate for that validation that I just need it. And so this is the struggle right now, but what I am clear on is that I don't want to spend the next 40 years also just serving that same validation that how is everybody else going to perceive me? Because I will die at the end having served everybody else's perception and not what I actually think I'm meant to do. Not that I think that there's one thing everyone's meant to do, but start to like peel off all of the layers of conditioning that exist. So for me, it's like, Arnaud asked, how does the Enneagram make you happier? And I don't think it necessarily makes you happier. Like what it does is it gives you more understanding. And so that doesn't, you can go to school to learn more. It doesn't always make you happier. You can see things a little more clearly. And so I have some clarity right now where I think, I want to pursue something that is outside of myself, that's really about serving. I mean, there's a lot of consistent themes here, and I think that it is about directing ambition outside of oneself to a purpose that's larger and serving.
If you like what we do, Stand Up for Passion, come to see me at the end. If you want to be a speaker, a sponsor, if you want to bring this event anywhere in the world, come and see. As you heard what they all do, what I do, for me, it's team building mostly in company. My thing is group work. I really like and make people lots of joy, few hours in improvisation, because I think improvisation is the best way to get out of yourself, where everyone is the same, and then deep work like this. So I do that with 30, 40, 50, sometimes 100 people within 1 or 2 days. This is the job I love to do the most. So again, thank you very much. Please, one more round of applause for our